Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How we doing?
I'm good. I'm rocking the DB today. I've got the long sleeves when it's 1,000,000 degrees outside.
Yeah, I just want you to know, contrary to popular belief, keeping the sun off your skin does work.
Okay.
It's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Is that why you do it, or is it just?
Yes.
Okay. I just thought you were weird. Full disclosure, like I just.
No, I'm not weird. But I did get a dose of reality yesterday listening to that presser.
Yeah?
He answered my question without me even low-key asking
What
it.
was your question?
Do parents pay?
Oh, yes. Yes, they do.
Yeah, I got that memo yesterday during the presser. I was like, dang, per head?
Oh, dang.
Some of these people may have to stay at the house.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Sorry, Micah. You're not going, bud.
Yeah. I asked him.
Gotta get that summer job, buddy.
And but he said he wasn't sure.
Gotta sell a pair of those Crocs. Make that.
No, this dude just hit the lottery. Like his brother just gave him multiple pairs of shoes that he barely wears.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, his shoe game changed dramatically.
Strong.
Yes.
So we're going for us.
He gave some dunks away to Maya
Nice.
that he was going to sell. And if Micah Micah's been selling shoes since he's been in like the 5th grade.
Yeah.
But he gave in and gave them to his
Gets
sister.
on like StockX, starts doing the whole thing.
He's the dude. Got an account.
Yeah.
Yep.
What size he wear?
He is a tenor now.
Not quite. Almost there.
Yeah, he's a tenor.
When we start selling like 10.5 11s, let me know.
Wow. Ravi here for hustling my kids. It's awesome. No,
Wait,
but
am I hustling him or is he hustling me?
Yeah,
He's the one selling.
Good point. Good point. May have to break off a pair of shoes so I can get into practice. No, but I like quietly though, I do want to know like where I can go and not have to be social. Because I assume there's going to be some people there.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a pretty good crowd.
And I go to practice to watch practice, not to
socialize.
Not at all. Ask anybody that knows.
Do you go anywhere to socialize, DB?
All right, I'll see you guys in practice.
You mean like that has a lot of people?
I mean, is there any place you go where your primary objective is to socialize?
Not unless I'm the speaker somewhere.
Yeah, and that's not to socialize. That is for you to speak to the other people who are socializing.
I'm excited about going to Stanton.
Yeah.
Hour and 30 minutes apiece. Actually, it says an hour 31 on my.
You think you can make it in an hour 29?
Probably.
It's exciting.
Probably like an hour 20, I guess, would be safe.
You gotta be careful up there when you're
I don't listen.
bopping through the small towns, though.
I don't mess around.
It goes down. I used to drive up to Norfolk all the time. It goes down to 25.
Now
I
did change lanes in a merging lane coming back from Indianapolis,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, I was 79 cruise control steady Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do make moves. Like I kind of like to be like a running back sometimes and get into openings.
A little bob and weave.
Yeah.
Just keep the head movement
I think
going.
the interstate's funny how all of a sudden you just hit like this magical moment where it like opens up.
Yeah.
Like where'd everybody go?
Man, that happened this morning, but it's because there was an accident. There was this there was like a tow truck or something that got kind of messed up on kind of coming around the 80 West here.
Yeah.
And I hit a bunch of traffic. I go, oh no. I almost texted you guys like, hey, we might have a problem here. But I was like, I will wait it out a couple minutes, see how it goes. But yeah, we had, and then all of a sudden just
it's amazing how like when stuff bottlenecks and when you get up to it, it's like nothing.
Yeah, you're like, wait, what happened here?
Hey, and what did we decide about when you should pull over and when you shouldn't?
For like police officers and stuff?
Yeah, because I feel like Sasha validated you, but I think you guys are both wrong.
When you're supposed to pull over when they're behind you?
No, like
or when they're on the side.
Oncoming and there's a median.
Oh, yeah.
Are you supposed to pull over or not?
If there's a median, I'm a no. If there's not a median, then I will pull over.
See, I think you're supposed to, though.
So here's my thought.
Sasha emphatically, with like most things she said, she's like, oh, hell no.
Here's my thought, though, is like they can't get to you. They can't get to your side.
I agree. I just don't know if that's right.
I don't know what the actual rule is. I'm just going on like
because I think in the driver's test when they show you the picture,
yeah,
I'm not sure if there's a median in there or not.
I don't know. It's been a hot minute since I took a driver's test.
Yeah, it's not for me.
We're going like 20 years deep at this point. Little, yeah,
got
just
me
right
beat by
about.
quite a ways.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I have to get my tags.
I don't think I've taken one since I got my license. I don't think.
My mom either. And
Yeah.
she's like 1,000. Well, she's 80.
Hey,
I don't mean 1,000.
You be nice to Mama Benning.
Yeah. but she's excited today. I'm excited today. This is arguably I was trying to come up with other ones.
Yeah.
This is arguably my favorite day of the year.
I'm much like Doc Sadler. I'm excited. I imagine it's different for you, not only because you've been there.
It's exciting,
right? Like, so you have a better sense of what today feels like and means. And for me, it's just, hey, we're one day closer to football, and it feels more tangible, right? Because it's like, hey, there's actual practice happening now. But then for you, obviously, you've got Sir Caleb down there actually getting in to open things up today.
Yeah, I get a lot of guys that I cheer for. So it's cool. I like my university. I got my spring manual too, man.
Yeah.
So, I'm a nerd. So I'm just comparing, contrasting what was on the roster then versus what I think is going to be on the roster now.
I mean, not a lot of departures.
No, I mean, not outwardly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I do think like some guys that won't be around.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I can tell, I got to look at an official depth chart here soon, but
yeah, it's it'll be interesting. So what does day one look like?
So I don't know. Well, I do have an itinerary.
I mean, typically
day one. Oh,
Yeah.
Let me tell you what day one looks like. I'm glad you asked. Why do I have this? First of all,
I don't know why you have it.
Well, that's a great question.
Day one.
Some would say it's a beautiful question, Coach.
It's a beautiful question. No, I don't know if he'd say that.
I mean, he literally has said it, so I think he might.
Jeez, I can't even read.
Did you go get those readers yet?
No, I have to order them.
Come on, man.
So breakfast is 6:30. Practice will be at 8:30. Lunch be mandatory. Then they got post-practice recovery. Special teams at 2:30. Offensive defensive meet at 3. Walk through at 4:45. Team meeting at 7. Offensive and defensive meetings at 7:30. Snack, then curfew. It's a
12-hour day.
It's a full day.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember it being like that, but I'm sure it was.
I don't know.
You have to ask somebody that's a lot smarter than me. Although we would go twice. So insert.
So you do 2 days instead of the walkthrough. Probably you do a second practice.
Yeah. What I want to know is if they use. So the cool thing about that new facility is they can walk through inside.
Yeah.
If they want to.
That's what I was kind of assuming with the heat. They might do that today.
I think they'll attack the heat. I can't see that. I mean, you saw it in the Chasing 3 episode, right?
Yeah.
Staff just. Remember I told you that day that like Christian just whipped their tail.
Yeah.
In their conditioning. You got to see. You make me nervous.
Well, we've had a lot of walkers outside the building the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Apparently it's the hot place to be.
Well, when it's 1,000 degrees out by 10 o'clock, people are getting it in early.
That's true.
Well, they might
better be ready to deal with the heat. You know what I'm saying? So,
wow. Yeah, I think they'll attack the heat because as you saw in those episodes, man, they get it in.
Yeah.
And he wasn't blowing smoke either about football like being better than the conditioning. Because that conditioning was miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. We processed through it all summer. It was miserable. Some of the things I'd like to steal for us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was talking about that yesterday at the press conference where
he said he just wanted a tough team.
Yeah. He's like, I don't care what you do. Just give me a tough team.
Yep.
And seems like it was a really challenging summer based on what obviously, and then what we heard from Coach Rule yesterday. And it looks like, I mean, you've seen some bodies change for sure, whether it's Jamari Butler putting on
I told you
a bunch of weight, whether it's Dylan Raiola kind of recomping his body a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
from the winter till now. Like or even with when we saw Gifford at Media Days, I can't believe how much that dude weighs for the way he looks.
Isn't that something?
It's wild. I'm still mad about Ty Robinson looking all skinny at 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? It's not fair.
That's crazy.
Get out of here.
So we've got, I was just looking at some of the lists for guys that have gone since I looked at the spring manual. Right? Little compare and contrast. You got no Applegate, no Borders, no Buckley, no Collier Jr., no Fields, no Purdy, no Javier Morton, no Lynham, which still hurts my feelings. No Kapai. For the non-scholarship guys, it's a little longer, but they're missing Timas, Bear Miles Jr., Kenshin, both. Isaiah Harris, who I liked. Hale got a good one because I think he's going to Kearney.
That's the Miller South kid, right?
Yeah,
he was good. The running back,
Dimmer and Cole Ballard too. So, I mean,
Ballard was the Elkhorn South guy.
Yeah. He was kind of banged up. He's a great high school player. Yeah. Watched him grow up since he was just a pup, and he was a terror.
Yeah.
Oh, ultra competitive.
So I'm sure it's different with Rule versus what it was like for you guys, but in terms of actual football stuff on the first day, like, what does that look like? Are you guys starting to install stuff day one? Like,
yeah, so I think the meetings will be installed.
Okay.
Then we would take the field.
Yeah.
So,
but they're practicing first.
Yeah.
So
they know what they want to do.
Okay.
Like, I'm sure they went over, because they don't have to teach how to practice.
Yeah.
Which is a total bonus, because even I'm sure in their OTAs they simulated it a little bit.
Do you know, are they allowed to install, like, do meetings and stuff before?
Not with coaches.
Right.
Not with coaches.
Okay.
So that's where guys got to be in their.
They can on their own.
Yep. But it's cool because you get that stuff downloaded to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to carry around like a playbook.
No, you just get that iPad and there you go.
Yeah. So I'm sure they'll be able to hit the ground running, and much like year two where you don't have to do year one, you don't have to teach them how to practice. Even though you got a lot of, you look at that roster.
There's a lot of young faces.
A lot of young guys, man.
It's a weird, Rule talked about this with Joel Klatt. It's kind of a weird dynamic of a lot of experience on this team and a lot of young dudes.
Well, how did Brunt say it, which was beautiful? He flipped the roster without changing the without. What did he say? He flipped the roster without changing.
Yeah, he said something about without getting rid of somebody, or he flipped the roster
without getting rid of the roster.
Yeah, something like that.
And what he said, it made perfect sense, right? Because he did change the roster quite a bit.
Yeah, pretty dramatically.
But it looks how you'd want it to look.
Yeah, he did it without processing guys out, or without really. I think there were some guys last year that just decided it wasn't for them, but. I mean, he's talked over and over again about
because he really only brought in Dowdell, Wright, Mazuka, Banks, Thompson, and Nair.
Yeah, was that 5-6 transfers?
Oh, Blyhill and Genetone.
Yeah.
So it's not like
it's like what 6-7 transfers.
It's not crazy.
No, that's a pretty. I mean, last year was 18, I think.
Is that what it was?
It was a big number.
Yeah, I don't know.
Plus a big class. I think it was 32 guys.
Now he did have a big class this year.
Yeah. Or that might have been this year's class, is 32 guys. But, he's been pretty adamant about not, like, if guys want to be there, they're going to get to be there, right? And so, obviously, that's probably going to change next year when you've got roster limits and things start to change in that sense. But if it's up to him, if you want to be here and you want to do all the things they're asking you to do, like, you're going to get to be here. They're not going to ask you to leave, which is
just hanging around.
This town on the corner. No, Little Counting Crows?
Sure.
We've got a special caller, I think, this morning here on the Hurrdat hotline. Dee, what's going on?
Well, I'm a little upset right now.
Uh-oh.
Oh, geez. Hi, Mom.
What happened?
I can't wait to hear this.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Well, I just got a spam call from Utah, Nebraska.
What? Well, now why would Utah, Nebraska be spamming you?
Especially this time of morning.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Don't they know you're listening to a show?
You got stuff to do.
Yes, I do.
Are you? What'd you think of the press conference yesterday?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Every time I listen, I'm just ready to just go and
Do what? What are you ready to go do?
I'm ready to go play.
Yeah. Do
I
you
want to suit up.
do you think you can put a helmet on?
Well, probably. I would try.
Are you excited for your?
Yes, I am. I am so excited.
I can hear it. It's kind of weird. Were you like that with me?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Are you kidding? Oh my goodness.
Well, you never said much. I mean, not that I'm holding on to anything. I mean, I don't know. I was too worried about whether I could bring my laundry home.
Well, I've lined up my shirts already in
Would you
closet.
stop?
I have.
Okay.
All my red shirts are lined up.
Okay, wait a sec. Okay, in which closet?
My closet, real close, where I can just put my hands right on them.
Okay, so what do
in my room.
what do you mean you have them lined up? Because do you have? So is it just red, or are they all Nebraska? Is it all Nebraska stuff?
Most of them are all of them are red, and about 4 or 5 of them are Nebraska.
Yes.
I have a red hoodie out already, and I have my red West Side shirt that says I'm a grandma. So yeah, they're all right here together.
Oh Lord.
Well, don't put that hoodie on today. It's gonna be too hot. Save that one for later.
Are you kidding? Oh my goodness, it's awful. Awful.
Are you color or are you picking the shirts out by the game already, or you just have them ready to go?
I just have them ready to go.
Okay, and then whenever you get up and you feel like that's what you're rolling with.
Every Saturday, every Friday, I wear a red shirt, and then on Saturdays it's my Nebraska shirt. So it says Nebraska.
You're right.
I have one black one.
How long have you had season tickets?
Oh my gosh. Bob Devaney got our tickets.
Okay, so we're going into 55 years minimum.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How important do you want to try to get? When's the last? You haven't been to Memorial Stadium since me, right?
No. Not since, I did go to the, high school championship game.
Yeah. Okay.
But I haven't been since then.
Do you want to? Are you trying to get to a game?
I'm going to try.
Yeah. What do we have to do to make that happen?
I've been walking more, so maybe I can walk a little bit farther.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I can't sit that long, but I'm going to try.
How's the knee?
The knee is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since I got my shot, it's pretty good. And I have my comfortable shoes that my son bought me, and now I have a pair in every color.
So you finally have some sense now. They're not too nice to not wear. Like you're supposed to wear. You're supposed to wear those.
No, for the first time, I had to get used to not wearing sandals so much and flip flops.
Yeah.
Because of my knee, but I'm okay.
Do you need me to like be a chaperone? I could take you down there.
Well, Ravi barely knows where he's going, so be careful.
That's true. I have no idea where I'm going.
Well, I'm gonna try. For my grandson, I'll try.
Okay, so speaking of the grandson.
Oh Lord.
Speaking of the grandson. Yeah, don't do it for Damon. Don't do it for Damon.
I'm okay.
Just for Caleb. So speaking of Caleb, how much do you think he's gonna play this year?
I don't want to jinx him. I'm so nervous about it. First of all.
Are you really? See,
Yes,
this is the first time I'm hearing this, so this is good. Sometimes, I mean, you're always glass half full. I never get to see you sweat.
Yeah. Well, it's my grandson, and I'm just as worried for him as I was for you. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to feel about the first hit. You just don't know how that feels.
Yeah.
Well, good news for Caleb is he's the one delivering the hits most of the time rather than taking them. So,
well, he can do that.
yes, he can.
Did you send him a message?
No, I did. I sent him a text on Sunday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
and he was, okay, Grandma, I love you. Thank you.
I told the story quickly about how you had questions about NIL and the tickets and seat licensing and all that after you read the article in the newspaper.
Uh-huh.
And you had some questions, and
yes.
a coach called you.
Yes. Which I appreciated.
How good was that? How quick was that conversation? Was it efficient?
Yes, it was. I mean, I was surprised that the call came before I got off the phone with you. I had to hang up on you to answer the phone. I said, what's going on? I mean, do we have connections now?
So you like, are you excited about 1890 and the NIL?
Yes. I just want to, I hope it works. I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I just hope it works.
Yeah. Hey, but you'd pay $25 to go to practice, wouldn't you?
Huh?
You'd pay $25 to go to practice, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would.
I'm going.
I would pay more than that to go to practice.
Of course you would.
But I just want to know, I just want to make sure he's being taken care of, and that's what I worry about, because I've experienced Lincoln and football and players, and it was fun, but some of those things I don't want to relive.
Well, I'm sure he'll be much better behaved than I was.
I'll say, luckily, Caleb's got way more sense than DB does, so I think that helps.
Well, he is his father's child.
Yeah, no trips to Lancaster County Jail for you. All right.
I think it's the second one that I'll have to worry about more than.
Oh yeah, Breeze. Yeah.
Than Caleb. Yeah.
You got that right.
Well, you got a few years. We can work on that one.
Yeah, my Micah is a little bit different. And I told him, I said, and you know what, Micah? I call him my Micah.
Uh-huh.
I said, Micah, I don't want you to change a thing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
But no, I'm excited, and I just hope he has a good year, and I hope he stays healthy, and I'm going to enjoy it.
All right. I love you.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of the day. Stay cool out there.
You too. You guys have a good weekend. Love you.
I love you too. We'll talk to you later. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Coming up on the show today, we've got Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7.
Busy show.
Busy show. Andy Kendeigh from KETV at 8:30. At 9, we've got Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. And then at 9:45, we've got Bob Nightengale from USA Today to talk baseball, as there was a ton of trade activity yesterday and still got a little more time today.
What time we done? 3?
I think 3 our time. I think it's 4 Eastern.
Okay.
So, yeah, we got a few more hours to see if people want to get some deals in before the deadline. And we will talk to Bob Nightengale about that.
I wonder if the Yankees made the Orioles make a move.
Maybe. My Red Sox were pretty active too.
I mean, the Yankees got better.
I wasn't thrilled about it, but remember when we talked yesterday? It's like, hey, most teams aren't like a reliever away from being a World Series champion. I'm like, you guys are not a lot of things away from being a World Series champion. What are we doing here?
Sometimes it's just like that, man.
Hey, if it's just, hey, we need to make the playoffs this year, fine. I can live with that. Like it's it's been a few years. We need to make playoffs again.
Kind of like your quarterback talk yesterday. We got to get back to because
Yeah, we do.
It's fascinating how it took off on talk shows.
Apparently, I started a trend yesterday.
Well, you might have ended up being right.
Let's get to another member of the Benning family, one that I think I probably also like more than DB.
Doesn't everybody?
We got Jay on the line. What's up, Jay?
Good morning, guys.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, living the dream.
Just hanging out.
Yeah. Nice.
Are you? Is today? My mom just called. Does she strike you as the type of person that would be like lay her shirts out and have them all ready to go?
Yes.
Well, you guys talk more than I do, so you probably know more.
I'm sure she's ready to roll.
Yeah.
This is unique for me because usually I only hear DB's end of his phone conversations with you during the show. So this is nice.
Yeah. Probably not always positive there, Ravi.
Whoa. No sense. No sense in airing out all our dirty laundry.
No, you just call her during the show like every day, and I only hear your end of it. And so it's nice to, hear both sides of the conversation.
So you hear the question of what are we having for dinner every day at 7:30?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You want me to like pull some?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, so at what point did you feel like you became like the spokesperson and the ambassador for Nebraska's football program, and that kind of pushed me to the side?
I don't know that there was ever a point that it happened. I think it just kind of naturally happened.
Really? Like, you're not even denying it. No, it's not like that. You're going to really try to explain why it is like that.
I mean, well, I do get called in for a lot of things, so it's fine.
So, Jenny, let me ask you here because I think you and I are on the same page here as far as Caleb's playing time.
Oh, Lord.
And being right.
Yes.
And DB's a little slow to get on board here. So,
really,
how much do you think he's going to play this year?
Well, I was really gung-ho until I listened to Grandma D a little bit ago because her nervousness kind of made me feel a little nervous now that maybe I shouldn't be as excited as I am. But I definitely think we're going to have some playing time. I mean, we put a bet on it a long time ago in our household, so I think I believe we'll get some playing time. And the more often he comes home and says things, the more I'm convinced we'll get some time.
I've got to ask, have you gotten a little before you made this bet, you get any like inside info that made you a little more?
She did.
No, and honestly, I would tell you, I had my own theories, but Damon would tell me that I'm just another girl that doesn't know football with those theories.
Whoa.
He probably wouldn't say that, but my theories are probably not football coaching theories.
Hey, were you? So you want to explain the conversation that came from Spain when you wanted to know about 22 miles an hour?
Yeah, sure. So Zoe and I had gone to the zoo that day with another friend, and I mean, there were 2 phone calls before trying to discuss dinner. And so by the 4th phone call, I was kind of like, yes, how can I help you? And he's like, hold on. And
incredible.
Kind of a pet peeve between the two of us. Don't call until you're ready to call. Don't put anybody on hold. Like, I was like, why? What? So
that's your pet peeve. It ain't my pet peeve.
So then, like 30 seconds later, hey, are you there again? And I'm like, yep, still here. And then it's all of a sudden, hey, Jenny, this is Coach Rule from Spain, wanting to let me know that I should pump my husband's brakes about who's going to be the better player out of the household. So it was pretty interesting to hear him call. And he did a much better job of explaining what the 22 mile an hour club really truly meant to me. So it was good to know. I mean, I appreciated the phone call, and he was very helpful and just kind.
I tried to explain 22 mile an hour to you.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Really?
You did.
Okay.
You tried.
There's a difference. Yeah, he did. Like, he put it in, slow people terms for me.
Here's the $64,000 question. Do you think David Sanders Jr. comes to Nebraska?
Oh gosh. I really, in my heart of hearts, want to believe yes, but I know with grandparents living in Buffalo and parents on the East Coast, that will be the challenge. The location of the family support, I think, would be the challenge. Otherwise, I'd say absolutely.
How did the visits go?
They were great. They were absolutely great. I guess I don't have a good frame of reference, but from what we experienced and what I saw, I don't know how you could choose otherwise.
I mean, Tennessee's not that close to Buffalo either. Let's just get them here,
True. Very true. And grandparents are heavily involved, so I would love to see all of them here.
Were you surprised in recruiting that they do as much due diligence with decision makers and being strategic?
I don't want to say I'm not perceptive, but those are things that I probably are not as aware of until somebody brings it to my attention. So once it's at my attention, I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. But there's a lot of attention to detail during the OVs. But like recently with Caleb being down there, I've noticed like a lot more things that are brought to my attention. I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense.
Are you happy or sad? I know you're going to see Dante here in a sec, that he and Jalen are roommates.
Oh, super happy. That I love that they were strategic on how they put them together, the West Side connection, but just the type of personality. They're both kind of quiet, but once they get comfortable, they kind of come out of their shell. I couldn't be happier.
All right. Where's Zoe? Wow.
She's
in rare form.
She's having a fit because we're not at camp yet. She's ready to roll to camp.
Well, Zoe, have a good day at school, okay?
All right.
Wow. She's definitely your daughter. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, guys.
Hey, wait, what's for dinner?
Oh, gosh. It's just the two of us and Zoe tonight, so it's a little easier on those nights.
Wow. I'm going to crash. She got somebody else to feed.
She tried. She tried.
That's totally fine. Come on over.
All right.
Might make the decision easier.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
For those of you who don't know, that's DB's wife. That's Jenny. Got some feelings about I think her and I are on the same page.
Yeah, whatever.
Listen, we're aligned. We got David Sanders Jr. coming to Nebraska. I'm just looking at flights. It's a quick 2.5-hour flight from Charlotte to Omaha.
Not as bad as plus you can send planes.
I mean, yeah,
figure that out.
I mean, listen, we've had people move to Lincoln before. Why not?
Right.
Just bring the whole crew. It'll be fine. We'll wrap up hour number one coming up next. Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, on the Pillar Exterior stage. Also, wherever you can find your podcasts, we are there as well. In case you missed anything, in case you missed Mama Benning calling in earlier, in case you missed Mrs. Benning calling in last segment. I don't know. We may.
I feel like it's like TK said. I can't win for losing. I clearly have zero control of what happens with my family.
What do you mean?
It's just like a free for all. Everybody just takes their shots. It's fine though. It's kind of how the family rolls.
So okay. So there is one thing I wanted to go back and get from our conversation with Jenny. Is it weird that I call her Jay?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if that was just like a you guys thing.
I don't know anybody. The only people I know that call her that are her parents.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like a you guys thing.
Not even at Westside.
Because you know how like you always call her Jay, so like that's just the thing I hear all the time. But I didn't know if that was like
it changed. It used to be JC.
Okay. Anyway, so we were talking to Jay. She was explaining how you explained the 22 miles an hour versus
which I thought was legit.
Which is versus how Coach Rule explained the 22 miles an hour.
So I went from like literal miles per hour on a treadmill, like if you put it on 4.1 or 5.6, how that would equate.
Something she would have a personal frame of reference for.
Yeah,
because you guys walk all the time,
right? And she knows like Jalen's fast. And I'm like, Jalen's like 22.18. Like,
Yeah.
that's what the catapult registered. And she didn't really get it, I don't think, or whatever. And then when he called, I don't know why he did that. It was like 8:00 his time. And he went in for like 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
He was just killing me. He talked about the character of the house, how he likes him better than me. Like, thank God for her, because
how he's already better than you are.
I'm a mess. And, yeah, it was just weird. Like, he called to tell, but he wanted me to patch her in on three-way. And he's like, I know you have that raggedy ASS Android. Do you know how to patch in a call? And I go, what are we talking about? He goes, when are you guys going to be in the same room? And I was like, never. He's like, call her.
Which, to be fair, even if you had an iPhone, I wouldn't have a ton of confidence in you three-way calling.
It took a sec. It took a sec. And so he was like, it's like the top 5%. There's like 8 guys in the club, like this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And it was like a big deal. I was like, that's a big deal. It was a big deal before, because nobody ever talked about him being fast.
Nobody did talk about him being fast. We can return to that, but we got your other son on the line here.
He must be mad people are talking about him.
We got Micah Benning on the line. Micah, what's up, bud?
Nothing much.
Breeze, what is going on?
I don't know.
Did you make breakfast?
I have not made breakfast yet.
I gotta tell you something. So we talked to Grandma earlier, and she said that she has got all her red shirts in order in her closet for the season. Does she strike you as somebody that would do that?
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Apparently, you're the only one that doesn't think she would do that.
It just seems kind of weird, doesn't it?
No,
No.
that's something she'd do.
So are you excited for the season to start? Because you haven't really grown up a fan. Is that bad, Dad?
I don't think so.
But why? How come you haven't been a fan? What's going on? Like, walk me through the mind of a teenager on what it's like to be a Nebraska fan or not a fan.
I don't know. When I first started watching football, it was like during college football playoffs. So then I started watching Georgia, and they were always good. And I'm not gonna say Nebraska wasn't good, but like in the early 2010s to now, they haven't been the best. So it's just, yeah.
That was very diplomatic, Micah. That was the nicest possible way you could have said they've been bad for about 15 years.
Yeah.
All right, so we were talking earlier about whether or not you're going to end up at the practice on Saturday. You're gonna have to like sell a pair of those Crocs to get your $25, or like how are you gonna make that happen?
I don't know. I might. I just went to the movies the other night, so I don't know how much money I have to spend.
I told him you're in the shoe hustling market. You got anything that you want to sell for Ravi or anybody else?
Nah, I don't have anything I want to sell because I just got all my stuff.
At what age did you first sell those shoes to What's Your Buckets when you were at Saddlebrook?
Oh, I don't know, like 11.
Man, you've been in the game for a minute.
Yeah, that was the quickest $60 I ever made.
All right, well, I need you to grow a little bit, because I'm like a 10.5, 11. Your dad says you're about 10 right now. So once you start selling those, let me know, because my shoe game's pretty strong.
I will.
How many pairs did you get from Caleb?
4.
Man, you're just cleaning up over here.
So and Maya talked you into giving her those dunks for free? You didn't want to sell those? That was nice of you, by the way.
No. Yeah, I wasn't gonna sell those.
Man, so nice to your sister. Look at you.
Oh, they're thick as thieves.
All right, so let me ask you about Caleb, all right? How much do you think he's going to play this year?
Would you stop? Wow.
I think he'll play by like probably 8th game.
Okay. You think it's special teams or he gets in on defense?
I think special teams.
Out there returning punts like Pops, or doing something else?
Nah, probably going to make tackles, kickoff.
Like Gunner?
Yeah.
He does have a little headhunter in him.
I don't know about all that, but
I don't know, man. He comes down towards the line of scrimmage with some bad intentions last year.
Yeah.
Breeze. Who's tougher at the same age?
Well, definitely like from when we were on our little league teams, definitely him. But this year will be different.
Yeah.
What are you playing this
Yeah.
year?
Safety and wide receiver.
Runs in the family, I see.
Which one do you like better?
Safety.
Who's been winning in college football?
I mean, I would say I have. Like the other day, he beat me with Georgia by 1 when I was using Nebraska.
And what did you call? What's the term you called him? He's a what?
I just say he was a pathetic loser.
You called
He
him.
ran the clock out and kicked a game-winning field goal. Who does that with Georgia?
Did you call him a trash can?
I did. I called him that too.
What's a trash can?
It's the thing you throw trash
A
in,
walking
DB.
piece of garbage.
Wow.
I can feel the brotherly love just coming through here.
All right, you got Olympic basketball. Give Ravi your thoughts on Joel Embiid.
Oh, I don't like Joel Embiid
Trash.
at all.
Trash. Can't move.
Trash.
What?
Can't move at all.
Why?
He's just so soft and like the stuff that Jokic does, because Jokic can't move either, but Jokic is 10 times better at what he does than what Joel Embiid does.
Yeah. Any strong NBA takes for Ravi?
I don't know. I guess my Thompson's twin analysis thing could like pan out.
What do you think about Tatum not playing against Serbia?
I thought that was terrible.
I mean, maybe Jason Tatum's just not that good.
No, I think Jason Tatum is that good. I thought he could have been a starter on that team.
Over who?
I like him way more than Devin Booker.
Fair. I could do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
What's wrong with D Book's game, Breeze?
Nothing's wrong with it. He just kind of has so much more room to fill. Like he has a good game. It's just not even close to where it could be.
I'll take Tatum over D Book. Don't tell Jacob Padilla I said that, but
all right.
All right, man. Don't burn the house down.
I'll try not to.
Go eat some breakfast. You got to eat.
Hey,
man.
what are you making since you like to cook?
I don't know. I might just heat up a burrito. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my kind of breakfast. Microwave. That's what I do.
Yep.
All right, champ. Be well.
Yep.
All right.
That is the youngest son in the family, Micah Benning.
You can just tell he's a terror.
Oh yeah, I can tell what.
Yeah, right.
I can tell what Mama D's talking about. She's you're gonna have your hands full.
You should just hear him argue. He can, and he's like putting together teams as like a general manager and stuff. Like he's a little cerebral brain.
Yeah.
He has really strong sports opinions.
He reminds me, like the way he thinks about things, he reminds me of me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like doing all the kind of the nerdy stuff and like scouting people and all that's how I was.
You know what you should have asked him about?
What's
Or
that?
he could talk for an hour? Cooper Flag.
Ooh. We'll have a Cooper Flag discussion at some point.
Yeah, he's broke that game down.
I don't know if it'll be on air or off air. We'll have a Cooper Flag discussion.
You know what's funny? If we go back to Coach White's clip, and I'm going to talk about this with BC. You always talk about how Coach Rule stays on the gas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the question that Coach White was answering that we heard in that clip was like, hey, how do you get better and improve? He's like, well, it starts with our boss.
No days off in the Nebraska football office.
It's crazy.
Oh, man. We will come back with the one and only Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. SCB, I'm Ravi. We'll be back from Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on?
Oh, not a whole lot. How are you guys?
Good, BC. How are things, man? That was is that the thoughtful kind of answer you were hoping for?
Yeah, you usually get one from Rule about most subjects you ask about. And I don't know. I just thought it was worth asking about Heinrich Harburg. He was the guy who started how many ever games it was last year, half the season. And he has been showing up on all those elite workout lists and things like that. I know he's really respected by his teammates. So obviously The Ryla story is going to be a huge one of this camp. But I think they're going to need multiple guys at some point. I think Harburg's going to factor in a very meaningful way at some point. And it sort of seemed fitting before fall camp started to ask about the guy who was the returning starting QB at least.
BC, are you impressed at all at the steadfastness of the staff to every time they are asked about Dylan or the quarterback room, bring up all three guys?
Players do it really well too.
Yeah, they really do. It's everybody.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, there were 12 players who did interviews yesterday, and I think if any of them got asked, they always would go, "Well, the whole room's pretty good." You know, like they all.
It's uncanny. It really is.
Yeah, that answers trickle down from the top too, like a way of doing things. But I also think there's a respect level that guys, especially because they do it themselves, right? Those guys who are competing against others at their position spot, they know that sometimes outside the walls, someone gets trumpeted, but there's a guy who maybe he's the third team person right now, but he's busting his butt just as much or in his own way means something as significant to the team. And so I think there's actually a genuine, let's talk about everybody that's putting it out there every day in those answers. But yeah, it's smart business too by the coaching staff. We've got this far without naming a quarterback. Why not? Why would you bust that up right now?
Gosh, it's so interesting to hear and to see the practical applications of it, BC, because there are all these little benchmarks you have to hit along the way. Like if you even make it into like a Chasing 3 episode, or you're on film that they pump out or whatever it is, that means you're doing all the other things other than just being a good player. Right. So it's like, hey, did you take your vitamins every day? Did you hit your weight goals? Did you what's the due diligence in this phase of your life? Like the holistic approach that they continually ingrain in every facet. You can see what the blueprint is and how it's supposed to translate on Saturdays by doing the little things right. Yep.
And getting everybody to believe in that, and also an understanding. They talk about it a lot. You hear Rule say, this is going to be the deal where you're trying to play 16 games. And I think he's getting that in guys' heads every time he speaks, that we're going to need a roster that is very deep. And you might not think you're at the front of the line now, but you might be at some point in this long season. And we're counting on being in a long season. So get ready for it. And I think that's that's the approach I think you have to have as a competitor in the first place. But I also think it really helps those guys who they could get lost in the sauce otherwise. Like if you're, maybe not one of the more high profile players, or you're a first year freshman and you're sort of feeling things out and you're used to playing all your life, and right away, maybe it's not going to happen. It's a good deal when you're seeing others around you and how they're approaching it, how it's working for them. And also you have a coaching staff that says, we're probably going to need you at some point here soon. Don't think we won't. And that kind of keeps you going.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, especially with the young guys, because at least with Caleb's his regular roommate, Donovan Jones, those guys, they'll come back. They always ride together. And they were talking about hitting their weight goals, right? Like, because they want you at such a poundage, you have to do this, and how they appreciate, what keeps those guys going is celebrating the small victories. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hey, perfect attendance at 6:30, or again, like maintaining hitting your goal weight, or this is the dinner that we'll have for you guys, or this is what you can do with your, like, just hitting those interior, Eric Ingerson's another one, like those weight benchmarks where you feel like you're valued real time, even though it may not play out like that for a while, but the carrot stays dangled up until you get a chance to actually compete for jobs. It's fascinating how they weave the little day-to-day victories in too.
That's a great mindset, and that makes sense to me too. I mean, it probably makes sense to a lot of people who do stuff like that, like even that aren't great athletes. Like I'm taking a kickboxing class in my middle age workout class, and you're trying to hit a certain weight goal and body fat and all that stuff, and it matters to you. You know, you put specific goals in front of you, and you know you're going to get tested in a week or so. You're like, I got to do a little bit better. I got to lay off some stuff this week. And these guys are obviously doing it at a much higher level with, more at stake. That's cool that they've got that, that in front of them to keep them motivated. And also just, go ahead, Damon.
I had said to Donovan, I offered him something. He was sitting at the table, and I go, I can't remember what it was, and we were just talking about his diet, and he goes, yeah, I stay away from processed foods. I felt like I was talking to a 40-year-old. Just real matter of fact, sitting at the table, and I was like, DJ, man, I love you. Like, it was just his delivery, how that stuff is actually working. I just kind of casually dropped Ingerson's name. Like, when you look at his frame and what he's been able to do in Coach Satterfield's room, you heard him just kind of wax poetic with Sharp. Like, those guys that are in sync with nutrition and school and getting class done and strength and conditioning. Like, I know what Coach Rule is saying when he says we get them, they're doing more work away from us than with us, and it's everything that's involved.
Yeah, within that answer is kind of interesting because it makes all the sense when you think about it. But there is that piece for coaches where not that they don't have an idea where these guys are tracking, but there's probably that curiosity to them as much as some of us. Like, okay, how's it all going to look now? Like, how did that all come together over this process, this grind these guys have had of doing all that nutrition work, all that weight work we have not seen, off the field stuff where it's just been player led. That's been outside of their vision. And I bet it's fascinating to coaches the first week sometimes that you're going to see a player or two who we haven't talked about. Maybe they haven't even talked about as much. They're like, oh, man, I didn't look at that guy now. I mean, it's a different deal. He's on a new chapter in the book. And so that's there's an excitement that always accompanies the first week of fall camp, just because it's like first day at school. It feels like, okay, it's finally almost here. But I think it's also attached to the idea we're about to see what a lot of work for some dudes, like what that actually looks like now and how that translates into this language. And there's got to be an anxiousness to that.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. Coach Rule talked yesterday about kind of seeing guys for the first time. Is there somebody that you're particularly excited to see? I mean, obviously Dylan is kind of the answer that jumps off the page, but I'm thinking more of a returner that you're either curious about how their body changed or, maybe you've heard some things over the offseason about them. Like, is there somebody that is kind of at the top of your mind, whether it's for the practice Saturday or a few weeks from now when they actually get to play, that you're like, I'm really interested to see this guy?
Oh man, I could name off like a dozen, but
Go for it. Run them off.
I don't know if I will, but the guy who keeps coming up, people might have trouble like getting locked in on Saturday to him, but Justin Evans is like the guy people do not talk about on the O-line near as much as everybody else. And I was asking different players, like, I asked Ty Robinson, or asked Nash, like, who's the toughest dude like to go up against? Who's like a problem for you? And they're like, Justin Evans, dude, he's legit. Like he's good. He gets after it. He gets under it. He just knows how to use his leverage. I just feel like Justin Evans is probably like an underappreciated guy in the off-season conversation a lot of times. Can play multiple positions. So you think of someone like him. You want to talk about underappreciated guys who I think are going to have a good season. Nate Borkercher, I think, is that
my
guy.
Man. Good on you, BC.
I mean, I understand. I think Thomas Fedoni is going to take that step too, and coaches do. And so this is not like pitting one against the other. I'm just saying I think if the quarterbacks can do their job and everything goes as it's supposed to, I think you're going to have multiple tight ends who can flourish this year. And Borkercher is a pretty experienced guy at this point in his career. You saw in the spring game, he had that catch from Harburg. It was one of the biggest plays of the day. I think he's very fluid. guy who can do a lot of things. And so he would be somebody in that category. You know, in the secondary, Singleton, I don't think is forgotten, but because he wasn't out there in the spring, he was to me like one of the top 2 or 3 best defenders on the defense the first month of last season. So if he can catch his stride after the injury, that's going to be really interesting. I'm fired up to see Ramir too after talking to him yesterday.
How about how they just gush about him?
Yeah. Well, he's oh man, everybody on the team loves Ramir, I think. He's just got a personality where he fits in with everybody. I kind of asked him about that. He's just, I don't know what it is. It's like how he was brought up or whatever, but he kind of meshes with whatever group, you know, like he can be in that conversation. And he was really at ease with himself and at peace going into this camp. And I'm excited for him. And I don't ever like think this way. I always hope guys stay healthy, obviously, but personally for him, I just hope it's one of those years where the body holds up well for him and he can show us what he can do for a full season. I think he's one of the fan favorites on this team.
Kind of a 2-1 here. I was surprised at kind of and I like the confidence, right? Coach Satterfield said, you know, we're going to be able to run the ball. We're going to run the ball. And I like how he kind of spoke that into existence. But if the season doesn't go like the offseason momentum has gone, how much of that do you think has to do with what the offense does or doesn't do? Like if there's a pitfall coming, do you think it's more apt to happen on the offensive side or the defensive side?
I actually think that's a really good question. You could twist your mind around on that one. But I actually think
we spend so much time talking about best case scenario. What if it isn't? Like, okay, so what's next? You know what I mean?
I think it's defense is my answer. And it goes back last week when I was sitting with you in Indianapolis. I said, and Tony White kind of said it yesterday in that fired up quote, like we have a lot to prove, right? Like this is a new chapter. It's not like an iPhone where it just transfers over from last season. And I feel like the conversation has kind of acted, not within their walls, but outside, I think has acted like that's just a given, you know, like, okay, they're going to have a top 10 to top 15 defense. I've even had, you know, some of those stories where you're like, okay, if the defense ranks 8th in the country and the offense were just like 62nd this year, what would that mean? You know, you start to do that sort of stuff. Well, the defense has to go and get it first. And they have all the stuff on paper that makes you believe they can, and a very sharp defensive mind running it. But that to me would be the pitfall if suddenly you have a defense that, you know, is not top 10 against the run and they're scuffling a bit and people are dinging them. And there's some breakdowns on the back end of the secondary and you're giving up some explosives that weren't there last year. And that changes the whole dynamic of, I think, the off season, like Kool-Aid or optimism or whatever you want to say. I don't think that's going to happen. But that's the one thing I hold in mind, like, okay, they got to still hold up their end of the bargain.
BC, can I play devil's advocate here for a second on the defense?
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
I think you can make the argument, as good as the numbers were last year, there were some areas of the defense that I thought did leave quite a bit to be desired, whether it was getting off the field on third down, whether it was giving up some of those explosive pass plays. Rules brought up a ton. They didn't turn people over enough or very much at all. They really struggled in late game defensive situations where they really needed to get stops, and situationally they couldn't seem to do it. I mean, yes, they had moments and situations where they were very good, but I think there's actually a lot to improve on too.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, you just ask Coach Rule, and he can rattle it off. You want how many times they took the ball away or sacks or didn't get a stop?
And so I look at it and I go like, okay, yeah, they were 18th or whatever in total defense or whatever the number was. And I was like, and there's quite a bit left for them to improve on. So I kind of look at it as, okay, maybe they get a little worse in one area or another area, but if they get better in a couple of the other ones, either you wash out or maybe end up even a little better.
Yeah, they don't think they were good enough in 4-man rush. They bring that up all the time this offseason. Third down defense always comes up. They did improve to become like upper middle and third down defense. But you remember early in the season, I mean, the Minnesota game, obviously, this is a great like snapshot of it. We look at the offense for fair reason in the Minnesota game last year, like, oh, they blew that one. The defense, though, couldn't get off the field on third down in the first half. If you remember, it was like Minnesota was like 7 of 8, and they controlled the ball, and Nebraska offense really had no rhythm throughout most of that game. And then, of course, Minnesota had the clutch drive late against the defense after the fumble. So that's just like hey, take a look at that game, and it shows that even on a night where the defense played pretty well statistically and points-wise, the head coach and the DC could show them the stuff, be like, there's like 4 to 5 things here is why we lost the game, and we can put that on us as much as the offense. That's actually a beautiful thing that you have that. All the stuff you're talking about, Ravi, that's easy to put on the dinner menu in front of the guys and say, that wasn't good enough. Let's go back to the Maryland game, the last drive, when they, drove it down and got the field goal at the end, even after the pick.
Iowa game, same thing.
Exactly. So they've got to have that clutch gene. And I think one of those like big parts within the games this year, this is going to be Big Ten football, where you pump the ball and you pin a team on their 8-yard line. This has got to be the type of defense who, in those select situations, gets those 3 and outs right there. You don't give up 25 yards of ground and then they punt it and the field is shifted on you. It's got to be those things within the game where this defense takes that next step, and then they can be great. And then the offense, of course, has some room, a little wiggle room, I guess you could say. But yeah, that defense is my answer, but that's a great question, Damon asked. You could go every which way with that.
So more apt to happen as kind of Coach Set furthered that answer. He said, we got to catch the ball. We're going to take some shots. We're going to be able to run the ball. I want to get better at throwing the football. If you're going to chicken or egg this thing, which do you think we see reveal itself first? The consistency in the ground game, or is it freshman gets off to a good start and they can throw it around the yard? That's a big, strong, mature line.
Yeah. I think they'll have some consistency in the ground game right away. I sort of expect that. They have a confidence they're going to be able to run the ball, but it always goes back to it all plays off each other. And Matt Rule, when he had that quote about, we can murder you on the deep ball, basically is what he was saying. It was a little bit taken. Well, I mean, it was a little bit taken out of context with some writers or people I saw, where it was kind of like, we're going to just do what we want in the passing game. I took it more as they've got the explosive guys on the outside, where if you dare to play everybody in the box like last year, where you didn't have to respect the passing game at all, that's where you're going to pay, and we'll that's where the big 60-yard chunk comes in on you, because we have the guys who can run by you if you give us that type of matchup. And so I think if early in the season Nebraska can prove they can work that middle of the field with much more efficiency than that run game, we're actually going to be able to judge players in ways that we haven't before. And I'm talking about the running backs and the line. Like, they've probably had a very critical grading system against them with the public, because the O-line's been working against defenses that know they're going to run it most of the time. It makes it very hard sometimes to be a great unit when they know exactly what you're going to do. You have running backs going against defenses that know exactly what's coming. It's hard to get those chunk plays in the run game when that's the case. So maybe we get to see some things out of Emmett, Ramir, Gabe that weren't evident easily last year, if you can loosen up the defense at that passing game, which is what Rule basically brings up about every time he talks, if you listen closely.
We're going to absolutely murder
we
you.
talked at the time when Butler got hired. I said, I'm just hoping, I get the sense Coach White had a heavy role in the interviewing process. And Ravi goes, yeah, well, I hope so too, because if you're really preparing him to be a head coach, you want him to be involved in this process. And it was fascinating to hear. Not only did Coach how integral a role he played, he had almost, it sounds like, autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the vibe that Coach White got from Coach Butler in the interviewing process, where he said the famed, "I think we got one." How integral you think that is to help in the meshing and the coming together quickly when this job had to come together?
Yeah, it seemed like in Tony White's answer, he was really struck by John Butler's enthusiasm for this next chapter. And I get what he's saying there, because that's a coach who spent the last decade having a good amount of success in the biggest league. And you could be a little gruff. You know what I mean? Like, if you had come from that background, like, you could be like that, sort of like, okay, I'll go do this for a year and then I'll figure out what's next in my coaching profession. But it seemed, I got the sense it seemed to Tony White like this is a guy who you get him in the room, you expect this guy with a Philly background who's going to be kind of, you know, like I say, gruff, and then all of a sudden he's kind of bouncing off the walls, bam, 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 let's do that, as Tony said. And I just think he thought, I like that energy. That's like how we are over here. He's going to fit well, and obviously he's a coach that has his own really good ideas built in. And, you know, he can take something Tony White says, and maybe it's a slightly different way that it's said in language. They can say, oh, yeah, that's okay. That's what this was over here. I see. And then bring it to the table. And it feels like so far so good. Of course, what are they going to say? People would say, I understand that. They're going to be positive. But it's hard not to like that hire on the surface. And Marquise Buford, if he was not being genuine in how much he liked the hire and how he said about the whole coaching shakeup, it's going to be a minor hiccup, is what Marquise Buford said. And I think they really believe they got a good coach, and they're just going to they'll find their stride fine enough with what they have.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. Great stuff as always, BC. We will talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. Didn't even get a chance to ask him who the 5th best quarterback in Nebraska history is.
God, it got hectic yesterday.
Did a little bit. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and I'm reminding you to go to hurrdatsports.com to order your Hail Varsity Yearbook for 2024. Exclusive interviews, position breakdowns, one-of-a-kind photos, and much more. You'll get an inside look at the 2024 season. Hurrdatsports.com is where you order your copy now through August 11th. Joining us now is Andy Kendeigh from KETV. What's up, AK?
Morning. How's it going? Happy New Year.
Happy, yeah. So I told Ravi, and it's for multiple reasons, but primarily even if I didn't have a child, like, this is like my favorite time of the year. It's better than holidays. NFL's in training camp. Colleges are starting. Like, this morning was a good morning, AK.
Yeah, everyone's undefeated, right? Everyone's undefeated.
Hey, you know what's
fantastic?
Yeah, right. Oh no, I thought it was cool because real time when Coach Butler got hired and Coach Rule was out of town and they were busy trying to do interviews. I said to Ravi, because I wasn't sure, I said, you'd hope that Coach White had a ton of say-so because it's his defense. Like, he knows the most. But how cool is it to hear how it played out and that Coach Rule actually allowed his hire to do his job with some insight, obviously. I'm sure he just didn't turn him loose rogue, but to have him come back and say, hey, I think we got one. Like, I think we got a guy. It's to listen to Coach White explain how he got a chance to pick Coach Butler's brain and vice versa was interesting to hear it play out because it's not like that everywhere.
No, I agree with you. And I thought the soundbite you played just coming into this was really telling. It really stood out to me yesterday when Tony said that, because we got the impression at media days that, that Rule has known Butler for a while, and he has, no doubt about it, which gets him into the pool of candidates. But I think the thing that really stood out yesterday is that Tony White needed the seal of approval to whatever candidate came in.
Yeah.
And when Tony said, yeah, Coach, I think we got the dude. I think this guy could be the dude. I mean, that says a lot. And I thought the thing that really stood out to me yesterday was that how the response to losing a staff member when they did was about as mature of a response of a college team reacting to something that could have been such a negative that I've ever seen. And it goes down the line.
Yep.
I mean, it goes down from the top to the players. I mean, we talked to Tommy Hill yesterday, and you could tell he was crushed to lose his position coach. But in the same token, he pivoted and says, this guy can help me. This new guy can help me. John Butler can help me get to the NFL and make our team better. And I thought that was kind of a cool response. And not only that, on the flip side, to have a coach come in who's worked in the NFL saying, who could be, bigger than his britches, say, you know what? They're not going to adapt to me. I'm going to adapt to the team and the terminology. I'm going to put my head in the playbook and learn their terminology because, when it boils down to most football stuff is the same. It's just called, it's just what language are you speaking? And so to have Coach Butler come in and say, hey, I've got to dig in and have me learn and have one guy learn it rather than have 30 guys learn my terminology. I just think it was a mature response to what could have been a very disastrous situation. And now, you could spin it in, this could be a positive for these guys.
Yeah, Andy, it's really interesting because it goes right into the conversation that I don't know if you heard the conversation DB and I had with Rule at Media Days, but he talked a lot about having emotions without being emotional, right? Like your Tommy Hill example, obviously, he had a relationship with Coach Cooper and enjoyed him and liked having him as his position coach, obviously, but is able to remove himself from having an emotional reaction to the new guy based on the filter he was working it through. Like the fact that there was no panic in whether the coaching staff, the players, anything is kind of incredible considering the timing of it. Even in the hire where Coach Rule doesn't just like, hey, I know this guy, he's good, let's just bring him in. But having the patience to be like, no, Tony White, this is your defense. You talk to him, see if he's a good fit. The whole thing just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I agree. And, credit to you guys. To interview at Media Day was fantastic with Coach Rule. And he does, and remember that, Coach Cooper is one of Matt Rule's best friends, right?
Yes, yeah. That's the thing.
So much together,
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that. To tell one of your best friends, hey, man, we got to pivot here and, have Coach Coop say, yeah, we got to do what's best. And, and Coach Coop says, hey, goes to his best friend and say, hey, I'm resigning. And have Matt Rule says, okay, yeah, I accept that resignation and I'll still love you, but we got to move on. One of those deals. I mean, that has to be tougher than tough for a head coach to do that. And then to pivot to do what's best for the team and say, hey, I know this guy. He happens to be staying on vacation a couple blocks down. Let me engage the conversation and see where we're at, bring him in, and then have the ball start rolling. I thought it was a really, really positive response to what could have been a very negative situation. And the other thing about the emotional thing, I'll take a step further. Yesterday, I think Sam asked Coach Rule about, emotions in terms of playing time, deciding repetitions during camp as we start revving up. And he says, you can have empathy for guys, but not sympathy.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting to say. And I thought that really stood out yesterday with Coach Rule because he's like, think about it. You go down that running back room, got options galore. Who's going to get the reps? Is it going to be, Ramir Johnson, Emmett Johnson, Gabe Irvin, whoever, Quentin Ives. But he says basically, you might be number one on one day, and then the next day you're going to be getting the 3 reps. You just have to keep fighting, and that's what makes this time so fascinating as we move forward. And not only that fans could get a window into like a peek behind the curtain Saturday, which I think is interesting. And I also thought it was interesting too that Matt Rule came out in his opening statement saying, hey, we don't normally do this. We don't normally we've never done this. We'll never charge for something that was normally free, like Fan Day. But he says this is a new thing. This is an open practice, but we're going to charge for it because it's NIL. We have to evolve and have basically a fundraiser. So that's what they're doing Saturday with this open practice. And I think that evolution into the modern times. I mean, I've been so impressed with Matt Rule, whether it be, audio communications and the helmets that we talked about yesterday, and how there always seems to be one step ahead of the curve. Let's just hope it translates to wins in the fall, because right now they're doing everything right, knock on wood, but we'll see. We've been down this road before, but they have set themselves up for success.
AK, maybe you're not, because you're kind of breaking down Coach Rule's command of feelings and thought processes, but are you surprised that they're so open about they as a staff needing to elevate their game as well? This clearly isn't about the players. There were some holes in their games too that they want to get better with.
Oh, no doubt, DV. We talked about it. Clock management is one. How they prepare practice-wise, and how they can get better in terms of eliminating or cutting down turnovers. How to force
traveling and better, being smarter. Like
yeah. No question. Even stuff like what side of the field are you going to coach on? I mean, trying to talk about taking a self-inventory from the top to the bottom. That, I think, will help this team moving forward. And I know it's the end of July. Everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid at this point because of what's in front of them. But I'm telling you, I mean, it does feel different. And I know I go into every season pretty positive, but when I talk to people, you got your Husker fans that are just like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. But you guys have seen it. They carry themselves differently. And we'll see if it results to win in a conference that is as tough as we've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's Andy Kendeigh, KETV. AK, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good week.
Thanks, AK.
Coming up next, we'll wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. That was Coach Rule from our conversation with him last week at Media Days.
That was so good.
Incredible answer there from Coach Rule. I don't want to toot my own horn, but set up by a pretty good question by somebody. I don't know who.
Well, you know what's interesting though, is that's
a great question.
It's going to spawn a lot of other things, because we'll talk to Jordan Larson.
Yeah.
I had a chance to talk to her. Sent her the message yesterday.
Yeah.
Reached out, and I was talking with her about Inside Out 2 and emotions, because again, if you didn't go back and read the article or the sit down that she did at ESPN, there's a lot of takeaways. You didn't know whether to be encouraged or surprised. There were a lot of emotions.
What I liked about it was I didn't feel like I had to feel like it didn't seem like they tried to put a positive twist on the end, or it was just like, hey, this is a real person's journey. It's not over yet.
Yeah.
And so I don't have an answer if it's a happy or a sad story.
I was captivated.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And I was like,
shout out to Aishwarya Kumar, who wrote that story.
I was like, hey, Jordan.
Yeah.
Can we talk to you? It's like 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, I immediately could.
You related to what?
I understood.
Yeah.
I understood what she was describing.
And I don't want to spoil our conversation that we're going to have with her, but man, there was something that she said about grief while grieving her mom in there that I wish I could just, and I probably won't do this on the air because that's awkward, but she's like, when am I going to get through this? When am I going to be over the grief? When do I get to the other side? And I just want to tell her hey, the other side isn't the goal with grief. Grief changes you. You're just a new person now, right? And I think people, when they grieve, trying to get to the other side actually works against them.
Yep.
Right? I've talked about him before. My buddy, his wife passed. She was 40. It was unexpected, out of nowhere, horrible thing, right? Just woke up one day and she was gone. And I think well-meaning people just kept wanting him to, oh, well, when's he going to get through this? When's he going to get to the other side? And it's he's not getting to the other side. He's a different person now. And once you realize that, there's a freedom there, because at a certain point, as the person who's gone through it, you feel guilty that you're not through it yet. And it's that's not the goal. Getting through it's not the goal.
Oh, yeah.
Just becoming the best version of the new you. That's the goal. And I wish.
And you've got to be able to rest in that too.
Yes.
Otherwise,
It'll eat you.
It can spark conflict internally.
It really can. And so like I don't know if she listens to the show or not. I hope she does, and I hope she hears that, because that when she said that, like, it broke my heart. I was like, don't try and get to the other side. There is no other side. This is just a new person that you are now. And I hope that she finds. It seems like she's found some sort of peace, but we'll talk to her. I'm excited to have that conversation with her, and I really appreciate the vulnerability she showed.
Yeah,
in that article.
That's what drew me in,
of just being real.
And we got a couple big ones. We're going to talk to Matt Davison
on Friday.
Yep, and get the 1890 perspective,
the scoop,
and kind of what they're after, and the day that August 3rd could bring. So
yeah, I'm excited about. We've got some good guests coming up, some good shows. But before we get in too deep on some of that stuff, I need
Too Deep is a good movie.
It's also a song by Sum 41. Never
Sum 41.
Sum 41. SUM. Sum.
Oh, okay.
Like, Sum of All Fears. That's also a movie.
I've skipped fast forward through it.
I wanted to make
I watched To Kill an Irishman yesterday.
I wanted to make a bold proclamation. We're making a prediction here.
Okay.
You ready? Based on the conversation we had with AK, based on the comment that Shane played coming out of the break with Coach Rule.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Nah.
As Bill Simmons would say, get the TikTok cameras ready. Okay. Nebraska's winning the close games this year. Full stop. They're winning the close games this year. You don't navigate the Evan Cooper. Like, the Evan Cooper situation was like 3 weeks ago. It feels like it happened a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's over. It's done. There is no panic. There was no distress. There was no, to quote Coach Rule, there was no, what are we going to do? There was none of that from the players, from the coaching staff. It's just, what's next? And we hit adversity. We don't just get through it. How do we get better?
And he's modeled the behavior on multiple occasions now.
Yes. But this was like a big one.
Oh, it was huge. But the players also saw how he dealt with Trev too.
Mm-hmm. So twice now in the offseason.
So he has a relative. He's like, hey, look, guys. Hey, this was my boss. This was the guy that brought
me here. That I said in my opening press conference was one of the reasons I'm here.
Yep.
Who's done
X, Y, and Z for you.
And both of the people that I said the reason I'm here are both gone now. Guess what? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And now one of my best friends, who's been with me every year that I've been a head coach, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? What's next? Nebraska's going to win the close games this year because that's their mindset now. The Evan Cooper thing would have broke previous year teams. In July, the season could have been over.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, the season could have been done on the spot before fall camp opened because you didn't have your secondary coach. The defense was supposed to be the linchpin. You were relying on them to hold the water while your freshman quarterback figured it out.
His personality was so dominant in that room.
100%. When we talked to Gift, did you get any indication that there were any issues?
Mm-mm.
Not a one. I borderline forgot they switched secondary coaches when talking to Gifford.
Yeah. I think the thing, I listen. So I go back and forth, and it's like I only have so much bandwidth, like my capacity to cheer and root for. So after yesterday, and I like him, like I'm a huge fan. I'm like all in. I'm putting my emotions in the Coach Satterfield basket.
Mm-hmm. You love that dude.
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I like his temperament.
I like him more and more the more I hear him.
Right?
You know what turned me on? It was a couple days ago. You know what turned me on him?
What?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't very good at that. I'm better at this. Glenn's better at that. And I'm like, I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah.
I appreciate people that can do that.
You're a big self-awareness guy.
Huge.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
It's the thing. I wondered, I'm sure you remember, I would rail against Frost and staff for no self-awareness, no accountability, right? And I got to the point where I wondered if I was asking too much. I was like, is that not a realistic thing to ask from a coaching staff?
I am all in on cheering for Coach Sat. Number one, I knew a little bit of what was going on behind the scenes.
Sure.
But then I love Coach Rule's analogy about, who
doing surgery on the train.
Yeah, like who put these stitches in? Hey, man, I'm trying to save the guy's life.
It's like, well, he didn't bleed out on the train, so I think I did pretty good.
But he does have some company because my affinity for the way Coach White teaches and his aptitude. And so explaining the hiring of Butler and him being empowered and like being on the same wavelength, because I can't tell you how important it is. Like one of the things that I love best about all the good staffs the teams that have won that I've been on, the staffs got along unbelievably well. And whether that necessarily means hanging out, it was the level of respect that you have for one another that lets you work together, receive input, not care whose idea it was. It's a direct correlation. You very rarely can have good teams in crunch time with dysfunctional staffs. You have to be uber talented.
Who was it yesterday? It was either White or Satterfield. I don't remember which one I was listening to, but one of them said you're assuming positive intention with the guys, right? Whether it's if you're assuming positive intention within your coaching staff, then it's way easier to be on the same page.
Do you know how many times I've had conversations with people, and usually it's on a personal level, I'll literally say, you don't have to assume the worst.
Yeah.
Stop starting with a negative supposition. Like it's paralyzing.
Can I just?
And so it's like, again, I'm sitting in the gas station yesterday and I'm like, I'm not turning this off because there's so many life practical applications to it. It's like, how can you not want to, this isn't Kool-Aid. This is how to do life.
Yeah.
If they win games, that's great.
Yeah.
But this is how to do life.
And guess what? I'm making my prediction. They're winning the close games this year.
Oh, if they do that,
because this is I'm putting my money where my mouth is. This is the thing I complained about with Frost. This is the thing I said was the problem, was the no self-awareness, the no accountability, and that led to the panic and despair and everything else. Well, guess what? They fixed all that. So now it's time to win those close games.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I'm putting it out there.
I ain't mad.
They will be above 500 in single score games this year.
I am not mad at you.
Coming up next, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. Live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. What's up, Mitch?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Mitch, how we doing, buddy?
Doing great.
All right,
month from the start of football season.
I felt like I learned so much from you in Indianapolis in just a 20-minute side session. I'm like, I left that conversation. I'm like, well, not only do we share some things in common, this part we don't. I'm like, that guy's pretty bright.
Well, the feeling was mutual. I walked away having learned a lot from you too, Damon.
Wasn't that crazy? We're just having this conversation in the middle of all this other chaos. I don't even know how we got started on it, Mitch, but one of the things I do like about you is you're guaranteed to spark some kind of thought. Like, I'm like, let me ponder that for a bit.
Well, it's good. That's good to know. I would rather have it be that way than the opposite. Like how you walk away from a conversation.
You're like, man, God, I hate that guy. Nah, it's not that.
Had a few of those too. Not with you, man. But so I wanted to hop in. We played that Satterfield cut on the way back in here, and we've kind of heard from him a lot in the last week or so. He was on Sports Nightly last week, I think. Obviously, we heard from him yesterday, and he seems a little different to me in terms of his demeanor than he was last year, and he seems genuinely excited to be back coaching tight ends and to have Glenn coaching quarterbacks. And part of me is just sitting here thinking, I wonder how much he actually wanted to coach quarterbacks last year. Does that ever cross your mind? It didn't seem like he enjoyed it all that much.
Well, it was tough to enjoy, I think, in those circumstances. And I mean the circumstances that unfolded as the year went along, not the circumstances that he faced. I think it maybe would be interesting to compare how he sounds right now versus what he sounded like a year ago at this time when Nebraska was getting ready to open camp and didn't have any good reason to know that it was going to turn the ball over 31 times. So when you got into, you remember the Satterfield from October, November, And he was beaten down at that point because he'd just been through, everybody on the offense had just been through so much. And I mean, it's got to be like a coordinator's worst nightmare, one of their worst nightmares, to have to change your offense in the middle of a season. Like if you have to do it in the spring because of personnel issues or whatever, okay, but not after 2 games of a season. Say, all right, we're changing quarterbacks and we're going to change the whole way we go about running this system. So you got to remember what he sounded like, I think, in early August last year. And I think he was pretty energized and excited at that time to coach the quarterbacks.
So when you're, where would you put like this ability to reflect and kind of their whole self-awareness and how they're consistent with the managing emotion messages? Is it the first close game they win? What kind of barometer do you think you'll get knowing that, okay, this is the practical application of all the descriptions and examples that they've given over the past offseason?
I think that there's a lot riding on how's it gonna look after they win a close game, or you could flip it and say, what's it gonna look like if they lose a close game? I mean, the season's not over if they lose a close game somewhere in the first month, and how they react to that, I think, is going to say just as much as what we're hearing right now. I mean, this is all, and this is all very real. Everything that we're hearing from the team, the confidence, the leadership that we see. I was struck on Tuesday as the players met with us in the media, and it was just like one guy after another who's a strong leader on this team. There were 12 out there on Tuesday, and there were some who we didn't hear from, and then there were the 3 that we heard from in Indianapolis, and they all have some version of like the it factor. I don't think that in recent years Nebraska's been that deep with its leadership. Like they can go 15, 16, 17 players strong that I think you can turn to in a moment and say, okay, you're up. It's your time to get it done. And you can expect that they're going to produce. So that's all very real. Like what we're hearing from these guys right now. This is not like being done with trick shots and mirrors, but when it all kind of hits the fan in September or October or November, whenever that moment arrives, how they react to that as a team, I think, is when we're going to really know the direction this season's headed.
Yeah, Mitch, it's interesting you bring up the depth of leadership, right? Because we've heard the coaches talk about how deep the team is, and I always assume we're talking about depth chart, right? In terms of, you can go, we heard Ben Scott tell us, our 2 deep on the offensive line is incredible. And we heard Ty Robinson tell us, I think we got 8 to 10 guys we can play on that defensive line. And so that's where my head always goes. But then I also remember that when we talked to Coach Rule last week, he goes, yeah, I could have brought 10 different guys here from our defense.
Yeah, he said this was the most difficult year he had in picking who to come to media days.
Yeah, I had a conversation like in the middle of the summer with Keith Mann about, hey, who are you taking to Indianapolis? And it was like, well, we could go with this guy or this guy or this guy. And you just kind of have to, I think the reason they went with the 3 that they did, and you could have added Bryce Benhart to that group, is because he wanted to reward the players that he viewed had an opportunity to go to the next level and then chose to come back. That's not the case with all of the leaders on the Nebraska team. Like, I mean, take Ramir Johnson coming off of an injury. I mean, like the clear best case scenario for him was to come back. It doesn't take away from his ability to be a leader or someone who would have been a great candidate to take to Indianapolis and put on the stage for everybody at media days, or Jamari Butler. Like, great leader, great story. But it was the best thing for him to do, to come back and play another year and put 12, 13 games, 14 games, whatever, more on film. The ones who went to Indy, Gifford, Robinson, Scott, like those guys were in positions where I think they'd be in training camps right now, no, unquestionably. And they chose to come back. And I heard Isaac kind of give his explanation for that, for why he wanted to come back in the Chasing 3, the latest one that came out on on Tuesday night, and that was really interesting. I'd say go check that out, people.
Yeah,
if you
he
haven't
pulled
heard
no
that.
punches. Leadership definitely mattered, didn't it?
Yeah, and like the specifics of his situation and what it was about his past and his family that made him say, no, the time is not now. Like I have something I still need to do in Nebraska.
You know, it seems like Coach Rule has this uncanny ability to reward the things that he cares about most within his football team. So you mentioned the kind of the loyalty of guys coming back that had opportunities to go play professional football, and that you probably wouldn't disparage for going to go play professional football, but they were loyal. So he wants to reward them with getting some spotlight in Indy, or, you know, guys like Jamari Butler or Tommy Hill getting featured on the Chasing Three, or even as all these guys hit their weight goals or their macros or whatever. Like, how much does that matter, do you think, within the building of the culture of constantly rewarding these things that you want your team to be about?
I mean, it's like reinforcing positivity. You have to find a way to do that. I think 12 months out of the year, it can't just be, hey, we won a road game, so like we're going to eat a great meal after the game, or we're going to have steak, on Sunday night at the facility or whatever. Like those are all nice things, but like it has to happen. They ask these players to invest all year. So whatever the way is that they reward successes, small wins. Wins don't always happen on the field. They can happen in the, whatever, in the training table, because the guy's eating right, and like all those things should be celebrated. And I think that's like a core belief in Matt Rule's program.
The more you know, surprised. That's the way that it should be. When you kind of parse through the interviewing process and how integral the sit downs and the autonomy that Coach White had with Coach Butler.
Yeah, that was an interesting storyline to unfold, and I think it was
fascinating.
Yeah, Rule talked about Tony, and these coaches don't get a lot of time off. I remember going in and talking to Tony White in February as they were in the lead up to spring practice, and we sat down in the football offices, and I made the mistake of asking him a question about just kind of like a small talk, like as we're sitting down, hey, have you had a little bit of time to relax? And he was like offended by almost by that question. Like, I'm not relaxing, man. Like, we got work to do. This is an important time of year. Like, I'm thinking, oh, okay, recruiting just got done. Like, there's nothing going on so much for you guys to do with coaching. And he's like, no, we're busy. We're scouting, this and that. Well, the only time of year where he does get to relax is for a couple weeks in July. And it's important for the coaches to unplug in that time, get away. And that was when this Butler thing happened, right in that time where he's got his one little break in the season. And he put down what he was doing on vacation and looked at candidates and talked with Butler. And I think in a lot of cases, if you're hiring a secondary coach, this is maybe overlooked because we just have maybe come to expect this with Matt Rule. But if you're hiring a secondary coach as a head coach, how much influence does a normal head coach or a head coach in a normal situation, especially if it's July, let the defensive coordinator have in that decision? And it sounded like Matt Rule really, really leaned on Tony White, his help and his input in that spot. And it just tells you, like, Tony White is the defensive coordinator of this team, but like maybe a better description for what he is he's the head coach of the defense.
Yeah, and he knows the most. So to concede
makes sense.
Well, kind of, but
it's hard.
A lot of times we don't do that in positions of leadership.
Hard to let go of the wheel.
It's like, well, I know you know more than me, but do you know what I like?
Well, the head coach is the one whose head is on the line. Like he's got the accountability. And if you hire someone who turns out to be the wrong fit, it's not on the DC. It's on the head coach. So that's, I think, why you see people, and there's like an egotistical factor or whatever. But that's why I think in most cases, if a position coach is being hired, like, the coordinator might like get the final, whatever, you're going to get to talk to this guy before we make it official. Fine. But like being involved deeply in the process, it's not always the case.
We're talking with Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. Mitch, I wanted to switch gears here to a piece that you just put out. If you could start putting these out like a couple hours earlier so I could read them before we talk to you, that'd be
We
cool.
usually do. Yeah. We're usually posted by 5, 6 in the morning. Sorry. This one went up at 8 o'clock today just because it's
Darn it, Mitch.
Yeah.
No, all good. There's a lot about Dylan Raiola in there. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to read that. But what were some of the takeaways from your story? I mean, the headline is, this guy's obsessed with being really, really, really good. I know you get into some of the coaching input he's had from, like quarterback coaching specialists and stuff like that. But what did you take away from that maybe you didn't know before?
Well, I've been thinking about this story and like planning it out in my head since the spring game when Dylan went to the microphone and somebody asked, "What are you going to do next?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to Kansas City to see Bobby." And, I'm like, Bobby Witt, what? What's this guy? Why am I immediately? No, it's Bobby Strope, the trainer who you saw on quarterback last year with Patrick Mahomes, and he puts Mahomes through all of these like crazy flexibility exercises. I don't know. He hangs upside down and does weird stuff, but obviously it works. And, we know the quarterback who Dylan Raiola like patterns himself after and idolizes, wants to be. You can see it in really every aspect of his game and his life. So it's natural that he's going to seek that out. And, he has resources that are not available. We're never available to a normal college quarterback or certainly a freshman quarterback, but because of his dad's connections in the NFL and because of resources that Dylan has through, NIL, he can do things that are different than just about anybody who's come into this position before him. I mean, think about like Tommy Frazier, the greatest quarterback in Nebraska history, and 30 years ago, as he started his career, like what he had at his disposal. Like, great situation, like great player out of high school, similar to what Dylan Raiola is, but like he wasn't flying around the country to go meet with like NFL coaches. He wasn't like taking his receivers on a trip to Texas or, certainly I don't think he was taking the offensive line out for pizza and footing the bill. So it's just a different world that Dylan lives in, and he can kind of act like an NFL quarterback. And I think that's like the fact that he spent much of his life around NFL quarterbacks, like it should not be lost in this discussion. Like he's watched what those players did and the way that they acted and the way that they interacted with their teammates and sought help outside of the facility. And he's with his dad's help has patterned himself in that way. So that's kind of what I went into the story wanting to examine. And then, the final touches yesterday we're talking to some of his teammates about how they viewed him. And I think that's a big thing that could get lost too. Like you could do all of this stuff and you still might not be able to connect with your team. But there's been an emphasis on his part also in fitting in. It would have been easy for him not to fit in because he was by far the most high profile player coming into the program. Like, I asked Teddy Prohaska, like when Dylan committed to Nebraska and signed with Nebraska and like all of the conversation was about him. How did that sit in the locker room? Like, did you guys kind of look at this and go, all right, this guy's going to have to earn his stripes? And he said it was never really too much of a concern because we knew him from the various recruiting visits that he'd made to campus. And then as soon as he got here, there was a humility about him where he wanted to do whatever he had to do to fit in. And he understood, kind of where his place was, and that if he was going to be a leader, it was going to have to be earned over time.
Man, Mitch, you took the question right out of my mouth because I was just going to ask, with the amount of attention that he got, it would have been really, really easy for any amount of, I don't know if resentment's too strong of a word, but like it's really easy within a locker room. It's like, hey, we've been putting in this work. This guy just showed up here and he's all anybody cares about. Like that can, especially 18, 22 years old.
I just think I go back to what we talked about though. They got the temperament in the quarterback room right.
Yeah.
And it matches I'm telling you.
Which is, I think, I think one of the quotes in your story talks about how, and I can't remember who it's from because I was trying to just go through it real fast, but I think one of the quotes was about how Dylan's personality matches Donnie's, and that's not something I would have expected, that this kind of, like almost, I don't know if grumbly's the right word, line coach is the same mentality as this like super highly touted 5-star freshman. Like, did that kind of catch you off guard at all?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's the Donovan that they're talking about here.
Sure.
They're not talking about the guy. And look, it's his the picture that he presents in front of the public is different now than it was 2 years ago when he was in his first season at Nebraska, and he was a first-time assistant coach and had never really been put in those positions before. We started to see more of his personality as in part because I think Matt Rule empowers his guys to be able to do that, and then two, because he's just gotten more comfortable in that role. He's always been the same guy, like behind the closed doors with his linemen. And well, first of all, he's extremely fiery at practice. Like you walk out there, you better have your earplugs in, or I hope you're not like planning on like a live video of Donovan Raiola at practice would not be good. I mean, it'd be good if you want to know what's really going on, but it wouldn't be good like to put on your show. But you get even deeper with him. And not that I've seen this, but the linemen talk about it. You get behind closed doors, and Teddy Prohaska was the one who was talking about that quote you referenced about their personalities. And he said, we go over to Donnie's house, whatever, for a meal, and you see the real guy, and or at least the real guy in that situation. And I think that's what he means when he says that their personalities are similar. I don't see in Dylan necessarily the fiery side of Donovan that we've seen at practice. Now, as his career gets going and he gets out there and he matures and gets older in this program, you'll probably see some of that come out. But I've not seen that to date in Dylan.
I remember this was probably, and you can speak to this post article because you know so much, but I was speculating in April and May. I said, the D-line modeled what they wanted their room to look like after the O-line room. After the O-line, they watched them work together, share, raise the floor, have each other's back, tuck their shirts in, kind of look the same. And I told Ravi, it seems like and I use Kalen's ability to continue to compete, say all the right things, champion the cause, Harburg being unselfish, never skipped a beat, still says all the right things. And then with Raiola's charisma and people wanting to be around him, I felt like it was important. I said, when your O-line room, that room is good, and the mentality in your quarterback room is right, so many other things go better for your football team in general. And it just seems like the mentality in the quarterback room is right.
Yeah. I mean, it looks that way right now. And I think they found a coach who can devote the right amount of time to massaging that. There's going to be hurt feelings at some point.
There's going to be poor performances.
Right. They're not going to, Dylan or whoever is out there is not going to, there are going to be some turnovers. Like, we've made this big emphasis about how they can't turn the ball over. Like it's going to happen. Like, defenses are going to make plays. And we'll see, much like we talked about earlier with, like, I want to see how this team reacts in a tough spot, in a close game, after a close game, whether it's a win or a loss. I want to see how this quarterback group reacts when, when the public is questioning why a decision was made or whatever it might be. And I think they're set up to succeed in that spot because of what you talked about with the temperament and the mix of personalities. But it's all got to play out in front of us before we kind of can put the final verdict on that.
All right, Mitch, real quick here. Got about a minute left. We were having this discussion yesterday about best quarterbacks in Nebraska history. We gave Tommy Frazier, Turner Gill, Eric Crouch, and Jerry Taggy as the top 4. Do you have a candidate for 5?
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say Adrian Martinez. That's a start. Steve Taylor's in that discussion. I say Martinez from the standpoint of like just sheer talent. His situation was difficult. And if you're basing this on what a quarterback is most often judged on, and that's wins, then he's not going to get that spot. But like the 4 years that he started at Nebraska, his talent and just ability to make plays was undeniable. I'd also look at Taylor Martinez. He had a just crazy talent himself, not as well-rounded as Adrian. It was more just an athlete out there playing QB. So if I'm basing it on success and the ability to win, Steve Taylor, you put Scott Frost in that conversation. And if it's just sheer talent, Adrian.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot like that. Mitch, we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mitch.
We will be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, also on KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour. And we're brought to you by our friends at the Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved with their cause, which is finding better treatments and one day a cure for childhood brain cancer. You can volunteer, donate right on the page, see what events are coming up, and see what projects they are getting involved with. That's all on teamjackfoundation.org.
I tweeted out my picture of Inside Out 2. And anxiety is at the controls, and I think people are hitting panic mode. It's not very good on my part. It was the only reason I tweeted that out is because we were getting ready to talk about coach rules.
Yeah.
Examples, and he talked about managing anxiety.
Yes. Not that you personally are having anxiety about the season right now.
Yeah, no anxiety.
Everything's good. Just woosah.
I'm
it's
good.
Cool.
So the first hurdle down, I was overly concerned about the living situations with roommates to move.
Okay.
Especially for the young guy, because they're creatures of habit and they don't know a ton.
Sure.
So then you drop them in a new deal, like, because they didn't even give them a list of what to pack.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you'll need this, 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 and this. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to ask some older guys. And so I asked him, I said, hey, who's your roommate? He's like, you'll never believe it. And I said, who's your roommate, man? I thought they were going to stick him with some lineman or something just to make him uncomfortable. Because that's kind of what they do. But everything's strategic, right? He's rooming with Jalen Lloyd.
There's probably some familiarity there.
Which they wouldn't do that just because of the West Side thing.
Yeah.
Because that's just not their there's always some deeper.
That's a little shallow.
Yeah, there's always something deeper.
They're West Side guys. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Than that.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's how to accomplish things as a youngin.
Young guys playing early?
Yeah, because, I don't know about that, but I just know that, like, Lloyd knows how to he knows how to stay on his business as a first-year guy. So I'm hoping that behavior gets modeled.
I'm gonna say it's how to get on the field early.
Well, no, I just think you just don't have to worry about foolishness with Jalen.
Yeah, I like guys like that.
Me too. That's why I like Donovan.
No nonsense.
I was like, perfect.
Yeah,
that's a great roommate. Oh, but they play the same. Nah, man, you don't worry about that.
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, that's not gonna matter, right? They'll cheer for one another regardless.
Right.
And well, if you want to win, they will.
Yes. Right.
Well, you have to be able to get to the Nashes of the world or the Ties of the world that can cheer for Nash or Sua or Van Poppel or the Ben Scotts of the world how about how his eyes lit up when he's talking about Justin Evans Jenkins?
Oh yeah.
Right.
And then
Justin Evans Jenkins at one point is going to probably take over his position. Now maybe Ben Scott's gone.
Right.
But just the enthusiasm, and I said, yeah, definitely, because I've seen him.
Well, this is a guy that
I just seen him in practice, and I'm like, yeah, definitely not a fake tough guy. And he goes, no, not at all.
This is a guy that Ben Scott came in from Arizona State, probably with some reasonable expectation to start.
Yep.
And then Justin Evans almost threw a wrench in that, right? And still Ben Scott has this sort of glowing admiration for Justin Evans. I think Ty Robinson was telling us, because we asked him about, like, hey, like some of these guys are probably taking snaps from you. Like, how do you feel about that? And he's like, oh, it's great. He's like, those guys are getting better, and then Nebraska ends up getting better.
And he goes, it's a long season. We're all better. And I was just like.
And I was like, you sound a lot like your coaches.
So I never knew how to say it. But what I always would say is when you can cheer for your teammates,
yes,
and it's at your own expense,
right?
That's when the magic happens.
Well, because you talked about this with your experience in the running back room.
Yep.
Right? There were a lot of really good running backs in that room.
Yeah.
There were a lot of dudes.
I mean, Foreman had to cheer for Hess, right?
Yeah.
Jamel had to cheer for Terrell. Like
there were a lot of dudes.
Kareem had to cheer for Tony. It's just.
I mean, Brooke had to cheer for Tommy.
Yeah. It's just.
Tommy had to cheer for Brooke.
Yep.
Like there is I don't want to give too much praise here because you know how I feel about Brooke. But like I get a little bit of that from Heinrich Harburg.
Oh, how about so the thing that I love about number one, like he was probably the only player because I spent most of my time with Noddle in the lobby in Wisconsin. I think that was Madison, right? Yeah, that was Madison. Heinrich was the only other guy like that because he was with his parents a good chunk of the time, so he's just kind of sitting down there. And I just like picking his brain.
Yeah.
Because of how unselfish he was. And I knew he didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he was banged up for most of the year.
And he just was a trooper, and I'm a huge fan.
And now he's got this super highly touted freshman coming in. He knows he's probably not going to start.
Yeah.
But do you think that's affected the way he's worked? No, because he probably buys into what Coach Rule tells him. He's like, hey, we're going to need you at some point.
Yeah.
Just like last year when you were third before Chubba got banged up in the fall. You were third on the depth chart, and you're just a few months removed from not even being allowed in the quarterback room, but you're still here and you're still working. Like there is a lot of humility, sacrifice. If I get better, we all get better there in Heinrich. That, man, that goes a long way.
Just listening to you say those couple of adjectives is a lot why I think Coach Rule gravitates towards him.
Yeah.
Because what's Coach Rule always talk about?
Humility.
That's number probably 2.
Loyalty
is 1.
Yeah.
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 Although when he recruits, it's competitiveness, but
sure. But
that's all he talks about.
Yes.
Loyal guy. He's a humble guy.
Because there's, as much as we talk about physical attributes that you can't teach, there's some emotional and mental attributes that are pretty hard to teach too.
Yeah, and they're so confident in their development. I think they worry a lot less about the physical.
Especially if you've got kind of the
blueprint
base level of athleticism.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Right.
Like if you meet our benchmarks, whether it's, I know we oversimplify it sometimes. It's like he runs a fast 100, sign him up, right? Like that's an oversimplification. And we heard one of the staffers we talked to, I don't remember if it was Vince or whoever, that was talking about all the kind of the different.
Oh, it was the little genius.
Yeah.
Was it Michael?
Vince. It was, what's his name?
I'm pretty sure. Isn't it Michael? He's the guy that I like that handles a lot.
The like scientist.
Yes.
Yeah. That and he's talking about, hey, it's X, Y, and Z markers.
That dude's amazing.
Yes, genius.
I followed him around like a puppy at practice one day. I was like, hey, man, I hate being that guy. I'm just trying. He's like, no. So I was just like, write this down, down, Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Hey, if you hit X, Y, and Z markers, it's like kind of with the things that our friends at Matrix Analytical are trying to do with their CAT system, right?
Yeah.
If you hit X, Y, and Z markers, they know it's like, oh, we can turn that guy into a football player. Right? That's fine. You know what's hard to turn into a football player? Guy that's not very competitive. You know what's hard to turn into a winning football player? The guy's not very humble.
Yeah.
You know what's hard to build a team with? The guy's not very loyal.
That's why I gravitate kind of to those teams that have their system and they don't waver.
Yeah.
I mean, people get mad at me.
You like Iowa?
Yeah, I do.
Because they know if they get guys, I don't know what their 3 things are.
Yeah, but if they're in
loyal,
if they're in that bucket,
yes,
they'll do the rest.
If they mark the check marks that they care about the most, which is why I brought the question up to Mitch about, like rewarding those things, whether it's loyalty, whether it's the, whether it's, doing like not needing a babysitter, whatever your check marks are to make sure that, because let's be honest, 75% of the year, you're not actually playing football.
Nope.
right? That's 9 months out of the year. That's 75% of the year. You are not playing football.
It's a great point.
Then you want to put in, the practice weeks and stuff.
It's a great point.
It ends up being about 95% of the year. You play 12 times a year. What's 12 divided by 365? It's not a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
About 1% of the time you're actually playing football. So you better love all of it.
Yeah.
You better care about all of it.
You want to try to sneak Fred in?
Yeah,
before?
Fred, you got like 30 seconds, bud. What do you got for me? Fred, what's up?
You there, Fred? Hey, Fred, you there?
Real quick here, Fred.
What's up, buddy?
I've got a question for Damien. Now that you've been around Coach Rule for a couple of years and you've seen how he's operated and how he coaches, have you picked any pointers up in your own coaching style and adopted some of his ways of doing things?
Yeah, absolutely. Almost every day. But my favorite
Appreciate the call, Fred.
My favorite is making sure you set the parameters for what business is going to be like, and stick with that.
Yeah,
like his consistency in delivering the message. He doesn't waver from.
No.
The accountability and the way to do things. How many guys repeat it now?
I'll say, and you know how it's true? You know why it never wavers? Because everybody sounds the same. The players sound the same. The assistants sound the same. The coordinators sound the same. The staffers sound the same.
Pull Christian Jones to the side one day.
Yeah.
Ask him, yeah.
It is uncanny. Coming up next, we're going to talk MLB trade deadline with Bob Nightengale from the USA Today. Wrapping up the show here on a Wednesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're brought to you by our friends at Union Omaha. Get over to unionomaha.com to get tickets for Saturday's match, August 3rd against Forward Madison FC, 7 p.m. at Werner Park. Youth Soccer Night is the theme, and it will be followed by a Special Olympics Series match presented by Leonard Management. If you can't make it to that game, you can also check out the schedule, the upcoming matches, as well as do a little shopping on unionomaha.com. Everything you need to know about Omaha's soccer club. We are efforting Bob Nightengale of the USA Today to talk a little deadline deals in Major League Baseball. But your Dodgers made a couple moves. How you feeling?
I feel good.
Yeah?
I just like for the staff to get healthy, but
injuries have been a problem.
Going to get Betts back. I mean, I feel they're going to be the team to beat in the NL.
Feel like you can stay above your head above water until people start getting healthy again?
Yeah. We're going to get Yamamoto back. Hopefully Buehler comes back worth a darn.
You asked an interesting question about Baltimore.
It just seemed like the Yankees should force their hand a little bit. I just felt like they would get busier.
But you thought Baltimore would have gotten busier?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's weird because Baltimore has the prospects to kind of do whatever they want right now.
I'll tell you the team that I'm concerned about.
Who's that?
And I'm going to ask Bob when we get him. I think the Padres did the right thing.
Yeah, about going all in?
Yeah, shorten out the back. They addressed the back end of their bullpen. I'm color me concerned with fathers.
We can certainly ask Bob Nightengale about that. He's a baseball writer for USA Today. Bob, how are you this morning?
Yeah, doing great. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm a little nervous now because I'm a big Dodgers fan, and I know they made their moves, but I do like what the Padres quietly did to the back end with their relievers. Is that the biggest threat in the West to the Dodgers right now, do you think? Is it the Padres?
I think so, although I don't rule out Arizona.
Yeah, especially when healthy.
Arizona's still very good, and they're going to get their pitchers back. I don't think they can catch the Dodgers. I'm not sure Padres can either. But, those are both threats. But, the Diamondbacks are right there with them.
So, Bob, there's a couple teams. You put out a winner and losers list on usatoday.com from the trades that happened yesterday mostly. And there's a couple teams in divisions that are heading different directions based on the moves they made. One of them's really interesting to me in the AL West because Houston's been hunting down Seattle in a bad way. But you like what Seattle did more than Houston so far with their trades. Do you think that kind of maybe changes the tide and stems the momentum that the Astros have had over the last, couple months?
It could, and we'll see what Kikuchi brings. He's been struggling lately.
Yeah.
But at least it's an arm, and they need something. I do like the aggressive moves Seattle made. They need some, bats, and then Rosarina likes the big time. So we'll see. But that's what Seattle really needed, and we'll see if it works. Yeah, I'm not sure about Texas. I'm not sure if they can. I know they've got some arms coming back too, but I'm not sure they have enough to vault in the first place.
They've already won 4 in a row. They're going for the sweep against the Phillies. The Yankees obviously got better. Do the Orioles still have a move in them, or do you think that's about it? It doesn't seem like they match the Yankees' energy, at least at the deadline up to this point.
No, that's the moves. I mean, they did get 2 starters, and with the particularly, you got Tanner Rogers, but particularly Zach Eflin should help. And they got another arm in Sir Anthony Dominguez. So we'll see. I think they have more all-around talent than the Yankees. I don't think the Yankees did much, really. I mean, we'll see. Jazz Chisholm is always very inconsistent. What he brings, and he may be the key. They didn't get the start they wanted. They thought they had a deal for Jack Flaherty, and it fell apart when they weren't too crazy about the physical.
Good job, Dodgers.
Yeah, right. So we'll see. I mean, everybody's got different views. Remember the whole Carlos Correa thing, and Correa's been fine with the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah.
So and he has had a bad back. So the Dodgers seem to thrive in those guys with injury histories and try to make sure they're okay come crunch time.
So did you understand kind of with what Crochet was trying to accomplish with the multiple years left on his deal? I mean, he made it known what his intentions were if he were to move. Do you think that limited what the White Sox were able to do, or do you think the plan was to hang on to he and Robert Jr. anyway?
No, they wanted to move both of them. They just never got the offers for Luis Robert. He's been way too erratic and striking out way too much. So people, really weren't offering much at all. I think Crochet just kind of torpedoed his own, trade value by saying that. It's one thing to want that, but for a guy who's only been, established guy for 4 months to come out and say that, it just rubbed a lot of GMs the wrong way. But I don't think he would have gone to Dodger Stadium and looked Kershaw in the eye and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm not going to pitch October. See you guys later." I mean, he would have been a pariah in that clubhouse and a pariah among the Dodger fans. I think just for him, even though he didn't come out and say it, it was the agents. But for kind of agreeing to that, it just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
We're talking with Bob Nightengale from USA Today. Bob, I'm interested about how the Kansas City Royals operated. Obviously, they're one of the most talented young teams kind of in the league, and they decided to kind of go a little bit hard at the deadline compared to what you typically see from small market teams. How did you feel about how their move so far?
Yeah, I mean, like what they've done. It's like they're not just sitting back and say we've had a good year, a bounce back year. We're going to try to make the playoffs next year. It's almost like, hey, why not take advantage of this? So no, I like the moves they made and didn't give up. Obviously they got a lot of prospects in years, for being so bad. Just like Houston did and Baltimore's done. But so they didn't surrender any of those guys, and they're still right there. So I like what the Royals have done.
Yeah, it's interesting. And DeJong just walks right across the clubhouse in the deal. They're right there in the wild card. Who's the team and they're not on the periphery. They're dab smack in it. But give me a team that you think can sustain where they're at, and then a team that people better watch because objects in the rearview mirror may be closer than they appear when it comes to running down the wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Royals can be a team to watch. I think Arizona definitely. They got some guys coming back. They're playing a lot better baseball the last week, and they're going to get Merrill Kelly back and Ryder Rodriguez back. Made some moves at the trade deadline, so I could see them, coming up and even getting that top wild card spot, maybe even scaring the Dodgers. The team we're kind of worried about is Milwaukee Brewers. It's amazing they've done what they've done with all the injuries and trading away Corbin Burns and just got Damon Williams back as their closer. So, but I worry about them as far as being able to hang on. And they're lucky in the right division, but that team is kind of teetering right now. And I'm not sure they've done enough to prevent a fall.
Hey, so when you look at them and the Twins, because there's some similarities there in terms of, wow, it's pretty impressive. Who's closer to being held together with duct tape, the Brewers or the Twins?
Well, the Brewers and the Twins have the talent. They just have to stay healthy. That being said, I thought they should have done a whole lot more than they did. Just getting a little middle reliever is not enough. But yeah, I think the Brewers, with all the injuries, you're talking about trading away Corbin Burns, not having Woodruff or Miley, and
Council changes dugouts. He goes to Chicago.
Yeah, the GM left, and he went to the Mets. So, but yeah, it's amazing what they've done. I mean, right now, I think Pat Murphy probably unanimous manager of the year.
Bob, did the Red Sox do enough to get themselves back into a wild card position?
I don't think so, but they didn't sell either. They were playing the sell all along in the way they're playing. I mean, the odds scorers did an unbelievable job there. So, they're, going with what they have. I just don't think they want to give up part of the future and go for this thing. I think realistically they thought.
Oh, we lose him?
Did we lose him?
I think we might have lost Bob.
Yeah, he's gone.
That was Bob Nightengale from USA Today. Only about a minute left here.
You can't be too upset. I mean,
I didn't want him to go for it.
Cutter Crawford's your number 3, man.
I didn't want him to go for it.
I'm like, the guy's like 6 and 8.
I've been adamant all along. This is not a good baseball team. They have the second lowest positive run differential in the league, only behind Seattle, who can't score.
It's amazing. If now Seattle does have a bat or two that they could.
Bob's back. If you want to go to him quick,
they could get going.
So, Bob, just finishing up your thought on the Red Sox there. Said that they were planning on selling all along, ended up kind of staying pat, made a couple minor moves. You think they're more looking towards the future and just not sacrificing that?
Yeah, definitely looking for the future. And I think some of these GMs, they kind of stay pat, thinking, what realistically, can we make the playoffs? Yes. But are we going to get to the World Series or go deep in the playoffs? No. So I think that's what you saw teams like the Giants kind of hanging around, and teams like the Red Sox too. Not really believing the team, but not wanting to give up either.
Bob, we appreciate the time, and hopefully we will catch up with you again soon.
Okay, sounds good. See you guys.
Thanks, Bob.
That's Bob Nightengale from the USA Today. We will be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln.